from Trustee DeGroot, who is involved with a family medical issue. And apologies from Trustees Croft and Hutchins, who will be a few minutes late. We respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, and I'll move to adoption of the agenda. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to minutes. First, minutes of June 7th, 2016, open board meeting. Mover to adopt those, Trustee Goldman, seconded Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to minutes of the June 14th, 2016, special open board meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to minutes of the August 11th, 2016 special open board meeting. Moved by Trustee Doman, seconded by Trustee Schmidt. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to the final set of minutes. Minutes of the August 24th, 2016 special open board meeting. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Dorman. All those in favor? Motion carries. And moving to item 4, recognition and delegations. And it is my pleasure to recognize Denise Augustine as this year's Inspire Award recipient. Now, Inspire is an Indigenous-led registered charity that invests in the education of Indigenous peoples for the long-term benefit of these individuals, their families, communities, and for Canada. Their vision is enriching Canada through Indigenous education and by inspiring achievement. Their mission is in partnership with Indigenous private and public sector stakeholders. Inspire educates, connects, and invests in Indigenous people so they will achieve their highest potential. Each year, Inspire presents Inspire Awards, a nationally broadcast gala celebration of the successes achieved by Indigenous people. This year, Denise Augustine has been awarded the Inspire Award for Leadership as a First Nation, Inuit, or Métis person who consistently takes on a leadership role in the education community that fosters achievement amongst K-12 students. Inspire recognizes and celebrates outstanding educators for their achievement and innovation in Indigenous education. Indigenous Educator Award recipients receive a $1,000 prize, a framed award, and an all-expense paid trip to the awards gala that is held in conjunction with the annual National Gathering for Indigenous Education. Congratulations, Denise. Works really hard. And we have also heard that you are a presenter in the Learning Forward Conference. So congratulations. Thank you. Yeah. Would you like to say something awesome and inspiring?
Well, I don't know if it can be awesome and inspiring, but I would like to say thank you. And one of the things that I'm self-consciously aware of is that being given an award for leadership really, I can only accept it on behalf of all the people who are doing the work alongside me. And so, you know, I believe that the only reason that I am successful is because of the culture and language teaching assistants, the Aboriginal student support workers, the classroom educators, the administrators, the senior management team, the bus drivers, all of those people who work together to ensure the success of our children. Last year, speaking of bus drivers, last year I spent a little bit of time on one of the routes where some of our First Nations children were struggling on the bus. And it's those moments that it really is driven home to me that it really takes a whole community. The bus driver was amazing. She knew each of the students by name. If they were late, she paused. If there wasn't somebody there to pick them up, and there was every other day, she stopped and made sure she got a hold of somebody before she let one of our children go home. really reminding me that it takes all of us. I most humbly accept this award, and your recognition, thank you. Recognizing that it's only because others give me the opportunity. So, heights.
Thank you, and just a really quick follow-up on my comment about the Learning Forward Conference. I noticed on the online presentation that they have put out, Denise is on the front page with people like Andy Hargraves, Michael Fullen, and a few other very well-known people. So we have a little treasure here. Thank you, Denise. Moving to report of closed meeting, Mr. Sanquist.
Thank you. At the closed meeting earlier today, the board received reports on personnel items and facility issues.
Thank you. Moving to item 6 for business, A, the action list. So are there items that anyone would like to provide information or ask questions on? So that we're progressing through what we have passed motions on. Mr. Sanquist, anything on the transportation area that you wanted to address?
Just we've adjusted our practice rules. I don't know, over the summer, transportation, the board received a special fund which was directed towards the elimination of in-catchment transportation fees, and a decision was made the August 11th open board meeting to do so. And then following that decision, another decision was made at the August 24th meeting to then eliminate the balance of our fees, which was a very small amount compared to the in-catchment piece. So this was for the out-of-catchment and schools of choice. So we're working through that now. Lots of parents are happy about that as they're coming in to register their students and finding out at the door that they don't have to pay for fees this year. And we're currently undoing that system. We were set up to accept payments in lots of different ways that we no longer need to. So there's a lot of work that Karen is working on, and the transportation department in getting to a place where parents come in and just register at this point.
Thank you. Anything further on the action list? Okay, moving to board evaluation. As you know, we are scheduled with 2 sessions coming up. The first on September 22nd from 4 to 5 to answer the BCSTA survey questions. And we will be here in the boardroom. Gina will assist with trying to make sure that we all have the questions after the introduction by the facilitator. Now, the facilitator makes me pause because you may not have heard that Ayla Erickson had an accident this summer and is still home convalescing. But BCSTA is still willing to support us going through the board evaluation process. We have just received notification that our request for Gordon Como to assist us through the process has been accepted. So he will be on that phone call when we do the initial questions on the 22nd, and then BCSTA will be tallying all of the data and providing kind of summary in their key areas. And then Gordon will be joining us in October for our review and planning. So I hope, if you don't know Gordon Como, he's a past president of BCSTA, and he's the guy that's there every year to call upon him at the very end to assist through the conference. And he always has that very serious, directive kind of manner, but with a great deal of humor. So I think we'll enjoy this process as well. Mr. Superintendent, did you have anything to add? I know you've been in conversation with Gordon as well.
Only that as we know, Gordon is a lifetime member of BCSTA, and many years as the president. So he brings just a wealth of experience of not just his own experiences in his district, but also with boards across the province for all the 30+ years that he's been a trustee and so on. So I think we will be well served.
Absolutely. Thank you. So moving to item 7, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the distinct pleasure to make some introductions to you. I'll start over here to my left. We have some 2 new vice principal appointments that I'm happy to mention to you. We have Ms. Julie Parker. And Julie has been assigned to the position of vice principal at Francis Kelsey. She came to us from Sir Winston Churchill Secondary School in Vancouver, where she has been an administrator in the Vancouver School District for 3 years prior to coming here, with also lots of experience, not only as a teacher, but also in the learner support world, and a whole variety of experiences that will stand us in good stead, moving from the hubbub of Vancouver to the hubbub of Mill Bay. So welcome to Julie. Also like to introduce Mr. Justin Hawkins. Justin has been assigned to the position of vice principal at Chimena Secondary School. He comes to us from Prince George School District, where he was principal at Mackenzie Secondary School for the last 4 years, and has an opportunity to come down to the Valley and again joining a little bit bigger team here. So we really look forward to having Justin and all his experience joining us in Chemainus. Justin, welcome.
So on behalf of the board, can I just say welcome to our school district. We look forward to having you work with us. We're on an exciting path in new curriculum and new reporting and new relationships and building a strong foundation to be the best ever. So we welcome your thoughts and ideas and work toward that.
And Madam Chair, if I might add, they have fit right in and taken leadership roles. We had a 2-day retreat with all our principals and vice principals, looking at our professional learning needs as district leadership, and both Justin and Julie jumped right in and were active participants in that. So we see lots of leadership right off the bat. So it's exciting.
Great, and you're joining 2 great schools, so it'll be a great match. Thank you.
And the late Debbie Mom. Debbie's madly trying to get out of some meetings that she's having across the way. And as you might guess, having startup first day of school, and so Debbie has been well into that. So perhaps, Madam Chair, with your indulgence, I'll wait to introduce her.
I think that would be a good idea. Let's introduce her when she's here. Good idea.
That's what I'm thinking. So perhaps we can adjust the agenda to be a little bit more flexible.
Absolutely.
Also, if I may, for board information, just to let you know that, of course, this is day 1 of the new school year, so Happy New Year to all of you. And it's a day of great excitement in our schools and in the district, as all those fresh little faces come back to school. We also have a number of refugee children that are joining us this year. 11 new students joined us on Friday. And so for them, it's really not just the beginning of a new school year, but it's really the beginning of a new life. And we're grateful that they've chosen us to have that opportunity to work with them and serve them. So that's exciting, and they are in a number of our schools. Would also let you know on very preliminary numbers, as we're hearing from our schools around enrollment, we do seem to be up. We anticipated growth and planned for some growth. We are above that. So it would be premature to give you any numbers at this point, but our numbers are healthy, and and seem to be growing. So far, the growth seems to be in the kindergarten to grade 3 range, both in the south and in central and in the north. So that's, and the lake, I might add. So that's all good news, very preliminary numbers, of course, just on day one. We have not asked the secondary folks to give us any data yet, but that will start coming in on Thursday as we see those numbers. So we're looking very carefully, but optimistic that we're in for another growth year. And of course, now that we're out of funding protection, that makes Mr. Sandquist's job and all of our jobs a lot easier in finding ways to support those learners because they are all fully funded students. So.
Fabulous.
It's good news. It's nice to be growing again. So you could say that, again, very preliminarily, in the last 2 years we've grown an entire elementary school. Just to sort of put it in that perspective, it's nice to be back on that turf again. Moving on to 7.3 for board action. This feels a bit early, but just the way the calendar works and timing of the next board meeting. October the 5th is always World Teachers Day, and we have a suggested action for the board recognizing World Teachers Day and suggesting that the chair and I then work together to think about how we would recognize that this year. We had a very successful recognition process last year. And so we would have a bit of planning time, and like I say, I know it's early, it's the first day of school, but just the way the meetings roll, we need to get on with our planning of that now.
Thank you. So moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee Croft. Any conversation? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving now to Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Sandquist.
Thank you. For board information, we'll start with the update on summer projects, and the operations department has put together a list here, and it's not linked there, but I can talk about it. There's been new roofs installed or in the progress. Some finishing work is still happening at Cobble Hill Elementary and Maple Bay Elementary School. So there's some photos of the before and after of the roofs for you to see. And we saw those recently, and they're looking great. There's new toilets installed at Alexander Elementary, and the Alexander Kitchen project is still awaiting permitting, and then it'll start once that's received. Crofton's Playfield received a refurbishment, so that's good news out there. LED lighting upgrade at Francis Kelsey, that'll continue through the fall and winter months. And testing was done on drinking water at all the SD 79 sites, and they all tested below the acceptable levels, so that was good news for our drinking water in schools. We know that's been an issue in some other school districts, and that program of ongoing testing will continue throughout the year. Other numerous small maintenance projects, and the big one is the building envelope project at Ecole Mount Prevost has been awarded to Heatherbray Builders Co., and that'll be starting soon, and that's about a $2.4 million project, so that's a big one. That's a big project happening out there. Outside of the operations department, there's been other work here in the board office. We prepared the financial statements, which the board will receive at the end of the month, and have the auditors here this summer. A lot of work done around policy review with Trustee Schmidt, and we're bringing that information back to the next Board Education and Business Committee. Did a bunch of readiness work for the BCPC absence management program, so you can take a look at our website. There's a bunch of resources up there that we were asked to work on. We onboarded with SD23 with the WorkSafe Claims Management Program, which was part of our budget process. And we received ministerial approval to dispose of Yount, Mill Bay, and Charles Hoey, so we were waiting for that information to come back, and those are now available properties for sale, and we're starting to develop that process for their disposal. There's a new Cowichan Secondary School project identification report that the operations department and particularly Lonnie and Monroe, worked really hard on over the summer to have ready in time to submit with our capital plan, which is on the agenda here today. And also, Ron McKinley retired at the end of August, and Brian Branting, who's our energy manager, now has a bit of a hybrid, a little bit of energy management, but he's also now Ron McKinley. So that happened over the summer too.
It's not quite wrong.
Not quite.
Thank you. That's a lot of work, and those roofs sure look wonderful after looking at them in the old state for a long time. Trustee Croft?
I was wondering if I could just get a copy of the photos and I'll pop them up on Facebook and other places.
Over
Yeah.
to Mr. Sanford.
Just email.
Would be good.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you. Please pass on to staff how impressive the list is, particularly to the operations department, including the director, the board's thanks. Thank you. So moving to board action.
Thank you. So the first item we have here is around the Duncan Primary Facility School Disposal. The board went through a closure process, and at the May 3rd, 2016 open board meeting permanently closed the Duncan Primary School, which is the old Seabolk building, the small building across the street from Duncan Elementary. So it was deemed to be surplus to the board's needs. The Ministry of Education have school building closure and disposal guidelines that require that certain things be done, and they're included here in the briefing note: consideration of future enrollment, alternative use of space, and fair consideration of community's input. So the board has a policy, which is policy 2230, currently on the books, which is around the disposal of land or improvements. And that policy requires that we do all the things that are above within the ministry's own guidelines on disposal. But what the policy also does is it has a duration of 8 months for that consultation period, which we think is probably longer than we need to have. That just delays our concluding this process. We still have to have a public meeting, and we'll schedule that at a later date. So a recommendation that we're bringing to the board is that we waive the requirement to consult for a duration of 8 months, set out in the policy, 2230, disposal of land or improvements, and begin the public consultation on the disposal of Duncan Primary School.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorne. Are there questions? Trustee Hutchins?
How much time do we hope to expedite this by making this resolution?
Mr. Sanders?
I would think about 4 months.
Nice.
Further questions? Trustee Hutchins?
And the actual disposal of it, once we go through the public consultation process, do we list it with a real estate agent, or how do we?
There's a step before that. Over to Mr. Sanders.
The first thing we have to do is once we've concluded all the diligence work that's required within the ministerial guidelines, we submit that package to the Ministry of Education and ask the minister for approval to dispose of the property, which is what we got on the other 3 properties that I announced in the summer project report. Once we have that approval, then it's up to the board to decide whether to engage a realtor to dispose of the property or to go out for a request for offer. So in other words, handle the business side of the transaction on our own, the advertising of the property's availability on our own.
Trustee Hutchins?
Is there potential for the board to give direction to rezone the property? And can that rezone, if that's possible, be done in tandem with this consultation process, or would we be presumptive if we do that?
Mr.
Typical
Sanders can answer, although it is a step-by-step process that's outlined by the ministry and in our policies. So I'm not sure if you want to get more information or not, Mr. Sanders?
I don't think it would, the ministerial process would negate that happening in parallel, because it still would have, unless we were changing the zoning so it couldn't be used institutional, which is what has to be the first offer, is that it has the ability to stay in the public domain, sort of the first step, which is why we have the consultation process and have to contact the regional governments, municipal governments, So I guess it would depend on, I'd have to look into that answer. If I don't actually have the answer, I'd have to find out from the ministry whether we could do that at the same time.
Could we make sure that we're specific on the motion on the table? Trustee Hutchins?
Well, I think it's germane to the motion, because we're trying to expedite the disposal of the property. And I believe we want to also ensure that we get best value for it. And the difficult position of rezoning, a rezoning process can take 9 months to 12 months. So if you go through a 4-month process, then you trigger it. And it really doesn't save you a lot of time by passing this motion. So,
Mr. Sandquist?
The motion is specific to the consultation
Yes. Yeah.
process.
for the sole purpose of saving time. Thank you.
Further questions or comments on the motion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Passed. Unanimously. Okay, moving back to policy 2600.
Thank you.
Sandquist.
Following the special open meetings of August 11th and August 24th, the transportation policy needed to be amended to reflect the decisions of those meetings. The previous transportation services policy had language around the collection of fees and around the waiver of fees. So it certainly is a much more simplified policy that we have before you here as a draft, and we've done some tracking around the deletions, and you'll see those in your package. One of the items that came up in our meeting, and I think it was the meeting of the 24th, was some discussion around walk limits and if transportation could be provided for students that had dangerous road crossings in particular, or poor visibility. So the policy also has a recommended amendment, which you can see just up there in the red, where within walk limits, transportation may be provided for safety reasons, so it doesn't guarantee that it will be, but which may include a busy highway crossing or roads with poor visibility. So it gives the flexibility to provide that service if there's a safety issue.
Trustee Schmidt?
When the Secretary Treasurer and Gina and I were working on policies, and we were looking at this one in particular, we did hear really clearly from a couple of trustees about the safety piece. But we also just want to recognize that we just needed something in place for when school started, as busing was changing, and that we are going underneath a transportation review, and that this policy will probably change again. So this is almost like an intern policy in place for what's happening right here and now, and then as the review happens, then the policy can be updated again.
Thank you. Trustee Thorne?
I don't know if this, but I'm hoping that in future talks with culture tribes and other First Nations, that we recommend that there be a meeting between the tribes and Department of Highways, because there are a lot of areas that I see daily that are very dangerous, the crosswalks, limited visibility. They're not very well lit, and when it's foggy, you can't see faded lines. I have some safety concerns for it.
Thank you. Trustee Schrock?
Just wanted to thank Trustee Schmidt and Jason Sandquist for doing a bit of a fast track version of it so that we could have the opportunity to help kids out this year.
Thank you. So for the motion on the table, Trustee Schmidt? Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorne. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to 2016-17 capital plan, Mr. Sandquist?
Thank you. The capital plan is really hard to read, and if you're trying to read it in your packages, you're going to find that it's kind of a blur, just the formatting of it. So I think
Do you see it?
Gina's done some work here to bring it up and make it larger for us to see. And under the building envelope project, the one item that we have here is that we're requesting is for Alex Aiken Elementary School. So you know that we have the building envelope project starting at Mount Provost. We're also asking for one at Alex Aiken in our plan. So we'll just keep moving through these. Second one is around the ask for new buses, and we have to submit a list of our buses based on, actually this is our bus list, where we submit a listing of our buses with the mileage and year, and then the ministry makes a determination around appropriate replacement of those. So there are buses included in the plan. Yes, there they are. There's 3 buses that we're specifically asking for in this next capital plan. So once they hit a certain kilometer of mileage, they are due for replacement. So it looks like 2 smaller ones and 1 larger bus there. Still working through there. This is on the energy management side, so carbon neutral. Every year we have to pay offsets, carbon offsets, and those go into a pool at the ministry, and they then use those to fund carbon projects. So there's no one-to-one relationship between the money that we send into the ministry and whether we get our project, but we are asking for a project for this site to replace the oil-fired boilers, and that's a project of about $175,000. So we pay about $50,000 a year into this fund. So hopefully we'll get more back than we submitted this year. And that one is blank. That's around expansion projects. So that's taking an existing school and adding on to it. We have a requirement for that in our capital plan. And our last one is around the school replacement project. So our one project that we have here is on Cowichan Secondary. And along with that will come the project identification report that was updated over the summer. The total value of that project shows here at $53,000, but there's some inflationary factors when you actually would get the ability to build it. Things would cost more later. It's about 62. Sorry, did I say 53,000?
Yeah.
62 million. Sorry, $53 million to become a $62 million project once the inflation factors and contingencies are in there. Slipped. Forgot some zeros.
Rounding error.
Yeah.
It was a test.
So this project is, this plan is due at the end of this month. So this is the one opportunity to present it to the board. If there are any questions, we have Rogue here, who, if I can't answer the questions, he can.
Any questions? Trustee Schmidt.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2016-17 capital plan as presented.
Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Thorn. Any further discussion? Trustee Hutchins?
I have a question. So I trust this is a long list and we hope to get some of it, or is this a short list and we'll get all?
Well, it would be nice to get all of it, but I think I'll refer to Mr. Sanquist if you want all that.
We would like all of it, but realistically, the main project that we have as a capital project is the Cowichan Secondary replacement, and that is why that is the only school replacement project on the list. And it is typical that we do receive buses from year to year. So whether we receive 3 buses next year or 1 bus or 2 buses, I'm not sure, but those are the buses that we have the need for, and that program is reasonably robust for bus replacement. On the carbon neutral funds, I think that's anybody's guess whether we're up for that project or not, and the same as on the building envelope projects. We just got a big one, and it would really depend on how severe the requirement was in our school compared to the other ones that the ministry is comparing it to. But certainly they're all valid projects.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the motion? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to item 9, committees and outside organizations. The first is for the Education and Business Committee meeting. Trustee Hutchins.
So move that the Board of Education receives the minutes of the April 26, 2016 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee Thorn. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to the June 14th, 2016 Advisory Committee meeting. Trustee Schmidt.
I move that the Board of Education receives the summary of the June 14th, 2016 Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Dolan. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to committees and outside organizations. First is the BCSTA Aboriginal Education Committee, and I attended a summer meeting at the ministry offices. they were happy to host us. A few things that I learned that would be important for all of us to know. Enhancement agreements that have been in place since 1999 are no longer an expectation from the ministry, nor will the ministry support development. School districts are free to continue developing enhancement agreements or not, which leads me to our strategic priorities plan, and we may want to think about taking that out or leaving it in. It's our decision. The second is we met with Don Avison, who is the senior advisor to the deputy, and he was hired to develop a plan of response to the Auditor General's report on Aboriginal education. So he is supposed to have that report by next year, and I think there will be significant involvements for school districts in it. The ministry also seconded the Aboriginal education principal, Caleb Child, and Superintendent Scott Penwell from School District 85, Brown North, to develop an equity scanning tool and work with districts and teachers on integrating Aboriginal principles into learning. And apparently they are available to school districts, so I thought it would be important for us to know that. The other piece of information was the ministry has seconded Diane Turner, who is superintendent from Delta, to be the chief education officer, working with the deputy and senior executives in the ministry. So she will be in contact with school districts and is kind of a go-between, as I understand it. You seem to be nodding, Mr. Allen. Would you like to add something on that?
No, I think the news, especially about Dan Turner, is great news. There's been a lack of an educator sitting at the executive table in the ministry since I left, and having Diane there now sitting at the executive table is good news for all of us to have a really solid educator in that place.
I think so. Trustee Thorne?
It's very special to me as well, and I'm hoping that if Diane was to have any meetings, or the other mentioned general person, you mentioned working with the deputy, that our principal for Aboriginal schools be present, and any decisions made by this board would have to go through again our chief principal for the Aboriginal schools.
Thank you. The other is the ministry has currently commissioned a BC anti-racism report, and it's when it's complete, there'll be a section on district self-assessment to analyze their status regarding racism toward Aboriginal students. And so I'm sure we'll be involved in that as well. And the last piece I mentioned to you is I was elected chair of the ABED committee, so that means you'll be hearing from me from a different source as well. Lucky you. Anything that you want to comment on, questions? Okay, moving to the Learning Forward and CSBA conferences, and this actually was asked by Trustee Crew that we have these on the table, so I'll just mention to you the Learning Forward conference is the one with Denise presenting and also Rod at. It is taking the place of our normal December BCSTA AGM, or not AGM, the Academy in December, and is also combined with the Superintendents Association, the treasurers, the BC principals and vice principals. It is fairly expensive, but it is available. So, and it's December 3rd to 7th. To let you know, there won't be a VISTA meeting at that, partly because at least 2 other school districts on the island have decided not to attend. The trustees have decided not to attend because of the conference and because the Canadian School Board Association's conference will be in Whistler in July. So they're making some choices because they're both about the same value for costs. I put this package into your box just because I'm receiving stuff as part of being on the advisory committee for the Whistler Conference. Don't know if anybody else has any questions on that. The price hasn't been determined yet. Okay. Trustee Hutchins?
So are we determining the number of delegates we're sending to either the conferences or both the conferences, or how are we doing that?
We could do that. We have never done that in the past, but I know other boards do that. Other boards set budgets and allocate the amount per trustee for the year. We have never done that. We've just allowed trustees to go to BCSDA related conferences in the past. So I don't know if we're interested in doing that or thinking about that or whatever. Trustee Hutchins and then trustee Schmidt.
So you alluded to the fact that it's fairly expensive. How
They
more,
both are.
what is the price difference between going to our annual event versus going here?
Now, our secretary treasurer probably could answer that better, but what I do notice is the conference value is so much higher because it's a 5-day conference, but you can go, 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever for the Learning Forward. They're all in US amounts. So 1-day conference is $220 US, up to 5-day conference $799 US. Plus travel and accommodation. Their accommodation is between $179 a night, up to, there's a $149 at the Pinnacle Vancouver. I don't know that one. Up to $209. So, trustee Schmidt.
I wonder if it wouldn't be wise financially for us to not attend that. I know that we do have the big Canadian School Board thing in July, and if trustees want to attend that at Whistler, it might just be financially more responsible if we go to the school board one in the summer versus that more. That's a huge cost.
Open to however we want to deal with it. Trustee Thornton, did you have something?
Well, I'm a bit biased. I'd rather be at Whistler. I know the costs are high, but I believe that we should be supporting our own.
Further comments? Trustee Hutchins?
Well, I think we have 2 of our staff presenting there, so it must be of great value for the conference.
Learning Forward.
Looking
Yes.
forward,
Mhm.
I just think it would be prudent if, to ensure that at least we had some type of representation from the Board of Trustees, if somebody's available to be there, and at both events. I think the Learning Forward conference is probably the biggest educational conference that I've seen in British Columbia, probably in the last 3 decades, if not ever. So I know there's been a tremendous amount of work going into it from a lot of different players, and so I'm not quite sure how we make this decision as a policy matter, and refer to our policy group to say, how do we handle this? I just think it's prudent that we have representation of both. And
Thank you. Trustee Schmidt?
This might be better, I don't know, maybe you could just put out an expression of interest via email to all trustees, and trustees can respond, and then we could go from there maybe? And make sure that both events are covered?
are you volunteering me because I asked you a
No.
question? Oh, the chair, okay,
I'm
great.
giving you the lot.
In the past, what we've tended to do is we all go to one, because when we get the information, then we talk about it and we can determine what we want to do with it as a board. This going to representative things we haven't done in the past, but it doesn't mean we can't do it in the future. Perhaps the idea of sending out an email and see if people are interested, and maybe it'll die, or maybe it'll raise its head, but
Thank you for doing that.
Okay, I will send out an email, see how interested we are. Okay, moving to item E, provincial council motions. Trustee Hutchins, you're a provincial council person?
Well, I think we've all received this. I haven't heard anybody talking about a motion that they feel is important to get forward, but unfortunately, this is our last board meeting before they need to receive it, so unless we can adopt one at a special board meeting on the 22nd, I think we're meeting.
27th, I think, so that's after the.
No, we have a board planning
Oh.
on the 22nd, so like, do you have that flexibility to call a 5-minute meeting if a resolution came forward from, let's
Trustee
say,
Hutchins?
Smith or somebody else?
Yes, as long as we have 48 hours notice, it's better, or we can waive the 48-hour notice at the meeting. The other thing is, we can do a motion after the 23rd, it just means it won't get into the agenda. So it can come at provincial councils.
Okay, I will send an email out to, as chair of that committee, to everyone and ask that they have something pressing, we can work on something if necessary before the 22nd.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving to upcoming meetings and events on page 39, and one of the things that we talked about quickly earlier was around the advisory committee meeting in September. Trustee Schmidt, would you like to talk about that?
Due to the fact that we are in September and there is nothing until after board meetings of the EBC, we've decided to cancel the September advisory meeting.
Thank you. One thing I'd like to see added for the, no, I don't want to see it added. I'd like to remind you that the VISTA conference in Sioux is at the end of the month, on the 30th of September and October the 1st. And I'd ask Gina or Gina? I will send you an email. Gina is going to be on holidays for a weekend, so I will send out an email and just ask who's willing to go to Sioux. Okay, anything else on the schedule? Okay, moving through correspondence, none. Moving to new business. A, location of medical marijuana related businesses. What I've noticed, and I'm sure others have too, that our North Cowichan municipality does not have regulations regarding geographical distance from schools. And I'd like to recommend that we write a letter to North Cowichan to request this regulation.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee Croft. Conversation? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to area issues, I'm sure you're aware that there seems to be some community concerns in this area lately. We have, and I say we as myself and superintendent and or secretary treasurer have had a couple of meetings, or we've joined into the community meetings, and we have some interest, obviously, because of our students who are transitioning between Cowichan Secondary and Quamachan. And so I'll ask our superintendent to talk about how we're approaching that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, you may have noticed things are looking different here than they did when we left in the spring. Estimates are there's 40 to 60 people living behind the dike, behind our buildings here. A disturbingly large percentage of them are youth. Not quite sure of the exact numbers, but under 19. We know that from conversations with Warmlands, they are providing some service, especially in the way of clean needle kits, to kids as young as 14. We know that say a large number of the 40 to 60 people are youth, and we know that of the youth, about 80% are children in care and about 80% are female. So it presents some issues to us. We also know that there is significantly increased injection drug use right here on this property, and just behind the dike and on some of the roads behind. And that's due to proximity between where they're accessing their drugs and needles and a quiet place. So we also know that there's a significant, and that seems to be sort of the ground zero is right here on this property here. It doesn't seem to extend over to Quamachin or to Alexandra. It seems pretty contained here, but also at the back of Cowichan Secondary, where there's in the courtyard area there, where there's there's cover, so it's dry and et cetera. So as we've had some of these community meetings over the summer, there's sort of two parts to that. One, of course, is the immediate safety of our students and safety of the adults that work here. And the second part is really a longer-term community plan of how are we thinking about moving forward as a community with a situation that really didn't exist here 4 months ago. So on the immediate issue, the rear courtyard of Cowichan Secondary is now completely fenced. That happened, thank you Monroe, over the last week essentially, that got finished up. And that's not just as simple as putting up a fence, but it's an emergency fire exit, so there has to be push bars and all those kinds of things in there. So that area is now able to be cleaned appropriately and available for student use in a much more secure way. As well, we have a daily cleanup of this property. Again, thanks to Monroe and his crew, who comes out before staff arrives and does a sweep of our doorways, entrances, some key areas that we know under some of the trees and around to look for needles and any other paraphernalia and clean that up in an appropriate way. We have asked all of our staff here not to, if you see something, don't touch it, don't try to pick it up. Just call Monroe or one of his team, and they have had the training and the gear to deal with it. And thirdly, but perhaps most importantly, as Candace said, we have a number of students moving back and forth between the two campuses. We know that there are some areas along that route that are particularly troublesome. So for the first 2 weeks of school, while we see what the situation is like, we have hired two, air quotes, noon-hour supervisors to be along that route during the day. So that today we had 2 people full-time. Starting tomorrow, they will be 2 4-hour positions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, but overlapped at lunch. So that when we get the bulk of the kids moving, and they're just there to supervise. They have very colorful vests on, so everyone knows who they are, and just trying to get a little bit of the lay of the land as to what we're experiencing. And I spoke briefly with Charlie. He's also chatting with kids to sort of see what their experiences are, if they're noticing anything or seeing anything, and what we should be doing. Warmlands, in our last meeting there, they're also very supportive, and we'll have some supervisory people out and about as well. And I've certainly been helpful in helping with some of the cleanup around here as well. So we're sort of closely monitoring the situation. We want our kids to be safe. And while the secondary school is between the two campuses is a bit fluid with what courses students are taking, it's hard to have exact counts. But when we do that, we'll over the next week or so, we'll see what a longer-term solution would be to this.
Thank you. Trustee Thorne.
I'm hoping that in these meetings that you have, that Ministry of Children and Family Affairs is involved, because you mentioned some of these kids are 14. I think we need to look at the age limit and use the resources that are there. Anything that's beneficial to help our kids go to school, feel safe, be able to walk the properties without seeing anything dangerous on the ground, like a needle or whatever. If some of these kids can be approached by representatives from MCFS, it would be good.
Thank you. Trustee Schmidt.
the teenage girl thing has always been a problem here in the Cowichan Valley, and I only know that from personal experience. And it's not something that I believe is easy to get rid of because of teenage females and how they feel and how they are self-sufficient to survive on their own. However, if there's anything that we can do outside of that, please let the board know. I would, wouldn't mind being a part of that.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. Moving to question period. Nancy?
Well, needless to say, that last item is kind of a bit of a shocker. That's just happened in this last few months.
It feels that.
Just catching. It's
the board chair.
escalated in the last few months. Yes. No one really gave us an opinion on that. We kept asking who, numbers, why, and we were given the impression that they are doing a study themselves in terms of what we're dealing with.
Now, who were they?
Quite a number of service providers, including Warmland House, who has taken a lead around this immediate area.
So you hired these walkers to kind of just have a look at what's going on while the students are going by in the area.
As well, and also to intercede if necessary.
Yes, but I mean,
Yes.
like, it's in this area, they're sort of,
Yes. Yes.
this is where they are walking to see what's going on.
Yes, I'm not sure of the exact group. Would you like to speak, Mr. Secretary?
We're a finely oiled machine. And that's part of what we've asked them to figure out is what, certainly, the zone past McDonald's and, along that route is a very key area. Some of the local merchants have also done some alterations to their property and to help manage the problem. So we're sort of all trying to figure out what this looks like and where there are maybe areas that we're not aware of that we need to be really concerned about. So right now they're just kind of walking the whole route. I think essentially once they sort of get past the traffic lights on the highway, that seems similar to before, but it's sort of more
This
on
is
the
only the
side.
first day of school, so it's.
Correct, we're just sort of trying to.
We're just sort of getting your feet in the door here, to find out what you need.
So we really responded with sort of an abundance of caution. We probably went overboard, but we wanted to make sure that those kids are safe and that we're getting all the data we can.
An important ingredient is that the whole community here, including service providers, are working together so that we can support each other's initiatives and be strong around our students.
Okay, that's great, that's what I needed to know.
Anything further in terms of questions? All right, well, moving to, Trustee Thorpe.
I have a question, if it's okay with the board for me to ask, and that's with Denise.
Could you do that after we
Okay.
adjourn? Would that be all right? Trustee Schmidt?
So
Move to adjourn.
Seconded
by,
Got that thing going, okay.
is that Trustee Croft? Thank
It is.
you. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay.
I was hoping that Denise could explain to everybody that there is a new support worker from Tribes that's going to be going to the schools. I was hoping you could give a brief introduction of what she's going to be doing. I've met with her, and I think it's great. And I wanted the rest of the board to know.